the script, yeah.
All right, we're ready to go.
Is it snowing outside?
Gee, I haven't seen a window in...
Yeah, it said it's supposed to start snow at 3 o'clock.
All right, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. In just a moment, we'll turn it over to Acting FEMA Administrator Bob Fenton and Northcom Commander General Glenn Van Herk. They're here to talk with you, or they're here via phone to talk with you about the whole of nation COVID response and specifically support at community vaccination centers. To all of the media that we've got on the phone lines, I'm going to remind you the same reminder we give. Please mute your devices if you're not actually speaking. Got to have that happen, otherwise this you know, all the feedback and all that. So without any further ado, we'll get moving. First up is Acting FEMA Administrator Mr. Fenton.
Hey, thank you for joining us today, and I appreciate being here today with General Van Herk. Along with a number of our partners, not only including DoD, but Health and Human Services and many other federal agencies, we are committed to ensuring everyone who wants a vaccination can get one. I'd also like to start by thanking Secretary Austin, as well as General Van Herk again, for their continuous, unwavering support as a part of a whole of government response to COVID-19. I would also like to thank our partners from CDC who have been instrumental in partnering with FEMA as we focus on the President's strategy for combating COVID. This is the most pressing ethical and moral imperative of our time. Make no mistake about it. When we get through this, and we will get through this together, it will be because of the strength of the partnerships and the resiliency we build in our communities. This week, we celebrated the opening of the community vaccination centers in Oakland and Los Angeles, and DoD is playing a critical role here at the LA site. In fact, all the vaccinators are from the Department of Defense, and we couldn't do this support without the partnerships like this. In addition to these two sites, the White House has announced the opening of 5 additional federal pilot sites and more to come. Located in Texas and in New York. In Texas, Arlington, Dallas, and Houston, and New York, and Queens, and Brooklyn. These pilot sites are designed to augment the state's ongoing vaccination efforts. Together, we will work with them to ensure that we increase the operational throughput of those that need vaccines. And we're working to connect all the sites, from sites that the states are working to sites set up through the pharmacies, to sites we're here now setting up to support social vulnerable populations. Alignment with the President's strategy to combat COVID, FEMA's plans include concrete actions to assist, augment, and expedite equitable vaccinations in the United States. One of the ways we're doing this is providing financial assistance. We've already provided $3.2 billion in the first 3 weeks of the Biden administration to 40 states and territories. Also providing federal personnel, equipment, and supplies from a number of federal agencies to many sites across the country. And as I said, now opening up specific sites that are primarily federally supported but state managed here in Oakland and Los Angeles. The pilot, and we will continue to learn as we operate this site. Important to understand the way that we selected and focused on these sites. We've looked at large population areas. We use the CDC Social Vulnerability Index as well as census data to look at communities that were most is developing sites that can handle from several hundred to several thousand vaccinations a day. This site here is intended to, while we do 3,000 today, we'll ramp up to about 6,000 vaccines per day to include supporting mobile sites throughout the community to hit those hard-to-reach population areas. There's other types of sites that we will open up, including, as you might have heard this week, we've gone ahead and partnered with the pharmacies and provided a million doses out to the pharmacies. Next week, that will increase to 2 million doses to help them. In California, that's CVS. Another thing is, in order to do this, we need to make sure that the supply is there. Next week, but we actually project out 3 weeks, so there's a confidence interval there to support them. And that's increased each and every week since January 20th from a little bit over 8 million doses for the United States per week to 13.5 million doses now. Just end with, the President has made it clear that equitable access is paramount. FEMA established a civil rights advisory group to ensure equity in the allocation of scarce resources. Also has disability integration specialists working with the civil rights advisors in each state and working to support these needs. Let me just close with a couple things. And let me reiterate, FEMA is committed to ensuring everyone who wants a vaccine can get one. That, two, everyone has a role to play in vaccinations. Support your family, friends, and neighbors in the need to help them get an appointment or getting a vaccination. And lastly, we need to still continue to take safety precautions. Wear a mask, practice social distancing, and get vaccinated. We're all part of the solution to this pandemic. Thank you.
And for all of you on the lines as well, I'd like to repeat, please, if you're not speaking, please have your device on mute. We're getting a little bit of feedback, making it hard to share this information. Thank you. Without any further, NORTHCOM Commander General Glenn Van Herk.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Bob. I really appreciate the time you're taking here to spend with me today. And as we talk to the Pentagon Press Corps, I think it's important they understand the roles and responsibilities. Hey, to the Pentagon Press Corps, thanks for your time. I look forward to talking to you about COVID today, but more importantly, further in the future about other NORTHCOM equities and NORAD equities moving forward. Acting Administrator Fenton and I just completed a walkthrough of this site and then a conference with the governor and the local leaders here in the state. I can tell you that the site is impressive, is ramping up, and that it is, as planned, right on time for today, despite what you've heard. All along, we worked with FEMA and the department, and the target goal for this site was 16 February, and that was delivered upon. The site is ramping up quickly, and as you heard the FEMA administrator say, it'll get towards 6,000 vaccinations per day. As a commander of NORTHCOM and NORAD, I have a couple of missions. First is defending North America in my NORAD hat, and in my NORTHCOM hat, defending the United States of America. We also provide defense support of civil authorities. All of those are no-fail missions. What I would tell you is the threat to our homeland is absolutely COVID, and that's what we're attacking here today. It's important to realize that it is a threat, and we have to take an operational perspective. That is a no-fail mission. In addition to the fact that defense support of civil authorities is no-fail as well, and we take great pride in that. I'll tell you, the Secretary of Defense has been clear. Secretary Austin, it's a top priority as it is for the administration. He said that DOD can bring capability and capacity, and that's exactly what we're doing, and we're pretty good at it. And we look forward to bringing more. That's what you have ongoing here in California today. The first of its kind, a state-led, federally supported with DOD Title X active duty forces. I can't overemphasize the incredible partnership with FEMA that made this happen, and working with the state and the local authorities here, as well as the California National Guard. As you're all aware, FEMA's request for forces from DOD included 100 teams. 50 Type 1 teams, 222 personnel, and 50 Type 2 teams of 139 personnel. I want to make it clear how we're sourcing those teams as we go forward. I think there's a little bit of confusion. So my first request for forces as the NORTHCOM commander was the first 5 teams. That was for all Type 1 teams, and it included 1,110 personnel total. I have asked the Secretary and through the Joint Staff for the additional 95 teams as well. What's important is the sourcing for that is being worked in tranches. And so what I have been allocated as the commander of NORTHCOM is the first 2 tranches, which is the first 5 Type 1 teams, and then have 10 Type 1 teams in the second tranche, along with 10 Type 2 teams in the second tranche, and that was about 3,700 personnel that are allocated to prepare to deploy. They haven't been given a tasking to deploy at this time. This is clearly a whole-of-government effort, and we've been assisting for over a year for this whole-of-government effort to get after this threat of COVID. I'd just like to quickly tell you that we provided over 4,200 DoD personnel in support of FEMA mission assignments in 14 states, 44 separate locations, 63 hospitals, doing everything from our original response to embedding in local hospitals, and as you know today, standing up this COVID vaccination center. Right now, what we have is we're completing our mission here in California for folks embedded in the hospitals. We still maintain our folks in Arizona, we have folks in Texas, and we have folks in the Navajo Nation. I'm encouraged by the downward trends I see, and hopefully we'll continue moving forward as the vaccine moves forward and not have to have more folks in the hospitals, but we're prepared to do so if we can. You heard Mr. Fenton talk about the way forward with regards to further sites, and so I won't go into detail, but I will tell you this site here on 16 February, Type 1, provided by the U.S. Army, 222 personnel. We'll provide 3 sites. We'll have the Air Force in a Type 1 team in Houston. We'll have the Army in a Type 2 team in the Dallas area, along with the United States Marine Corps. 24 February, we should be up and running, administering vaccines. In the New York area, also on 24 February, in Queens and Brooklyn. In Queens, we'll have a Navy Type 2 team, and we'll have an Air Force Type 2 team in Brooklyn. I want to be clear with regards to the New Jersey support, which is out in the public as well. That is separate from a FEMA request for 100 teams. That support is being provided by troops that the Secretary of Defense has already allocated to me to support hospitals. Out of those forces, I'm carving out teams that will support not only the New Jersey area, but the U.S. Virgin Islands in the not-too-distant future. New Jersey, actually, Site 1, the first team was effective on 14 February and administering shots. We're working with FEMA on Site 2 and Site 3, and the potential exists for a 4th site in New Jersey. 2 sites currently being worked with FEMA in the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas and St. Croix, and we think they'll be about the 1st or 2nd of March, but don't hold me to that. Each of those teams in New Jersey and the U.S. Virgin Islands are 25-person teams, strictly medical, no support, that roll in and provide vaccinations. And I'll pause there and we'll take your questions.
Okay, so yeah, we will stop and take a couple of questions. When asking a question, please let us know which of the principals you're addressing the question to. First up, we'll go to the phones for AP. Lita Baldor, please.
Hi, thanks so much. I just want to let you all know that I think towards the end we could hear the general fairly clearly, but early on, particularly, we could not hear the FEMA administrator very well at all. It was very muffled, and I think we missed large chunks of his conversation, just FYI. I have a question for Mr. Fenton. Do you still expect that you will use and need the full 100 military teams? And how quickly do you think you will be able to get those out to various parts of the country? And for the general, I don't know if either you or Ms. Fenton, if you could explain a little bit to us about the difference between the 100 teams, 100 vaccination centers that the Biden administration has said they want to set up, and how that number jives with the 100 military teams or the other teams that the general has talked about. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Bob Fenton, Acting Administrator of FEMA. Hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yes, a little better. Thank you.
Okay. So how did we get to the 100 teams? What we did is we looked at as vaccine comes more available and we get to a point in March and April, another vaccine comes on, we need to make sure we have the throughput in the system to vaccinate people. And so we looked at 100 teams as having the capability to vaccinate over 400,000 people per day. For example, right now in the United States, we're up to vaccinate 1.67 million people today, 1.67 million people a day. So as vaccine increases and supply increases in out months, we need to have other ability to vaccinate people. How do we do that? One, we're providing funding, the $3.2 billion I talked about to state and local governments to bring on their capability and resources. Two, the President's authorized the National Guard 100% to bring on more resources from the National Guard. Three, we're augmenting states and local governments with gaps of personnel from the federal side, whether it be vaccinators, equipment, supplies, maybe locations to assist them in vaccinating. But we always knew along the way we would have to provide predominantly federally supported sites, which today is a pilot of these federally sites. These will continue to grow as supply comes on board. In addition to what we're doing through the states and the different sites they're using, whether it be medical facilities, those kind of things, we're directly vaccinating the skilled nursing facilities and healthcare clinical homes. And then we are also sending vaccine to the the pharmacies, and sent 1 million doses last week, 2 million doses next week. And so we want to use all above to vaccinate Americans. How much will we have to get to those 100 teams? It depends on how much the pharmacies can do, how much states and local governments can handle, and what is the gap. We want to make sure we have the capability to go up to almost 500,000 vaccines a day. That's what the 100 teams buys us. How much we'll use will depend on vaccine supply and the capability of state and local government, the pharmacies, and other avenues.
Yeah, to answer your second question, the 100 teams were designed for high capacity, 6,000 vaccines per day for a type 1 team, and for type 2, 3,000 per day. That's all based on FEMA's request. The smaller sites in New Jersey did not have a requirement for that capacity, and so I was able to take those forces from forces I already had allocated to me to meet the demand signal by FEMA, not DOD, by FEMA for those sites.
Okay. Next up, we'll take one from the floor here. Tara Kopp.
Hi, thank you for doing this. For General Van Herk, could you describe what the military personnel that will be assigned to the Dallas and Arlington sites, what they will actually be doing? And then for either one of you, just a numbers clarification. The 3,700, are they all active duty? And is it 3,700 plus the 1,100 that have already been sent, or is it 3,700 total? Thank you.
Yeah, let me answer that last question first. They're all active duty. Only 222 have been sent, plus the 25 that I sent to New Jersey. They're all on prepared to deploy orders. They've been allocated to me as the commander to NORTHCOM to utilize for mission assignments approved by the Secretary at the request of FEMA. So those forces are ready to go, and they're all active duty. With regards to your first question, quickly remind me of that. I forgot that one.
If you could describe what, if you're a civilian going to the Dallas or Arlington or Houston site, what exactly will they see military personnel doing? And then I'm still confused, I'm sorry, on the number. Is it 3,700 total, or is it 3,700 plus 1,100 that are on prepare to deploy?
22-person team has 80 persons assigned to it that will administer vaccines. In addition to that is all the support. So pharmacists, for example, you have to have pharmacy techs and pharmacists to prepare the vaccine. You have to have runners, et cetera, to distribute the vaccine. As folks pull into this site where you drive in, we have to have support personnel who screen those persons, ensure that they've had a proper screening ahead of the vaccine. In addition, we have supervisors that are nurses, such as RNs providing supervisory roles over medics that are providing the vaccines. And we also have medical providers who are supervising after the vaccine to ensure there's no complications. So it gets pretty complicated. So a person who may have a post-vaccine event would be handled by a military active duty person providing that support. I hope that answers your question.
Get with me. Next up, Lucas.
General, is the National Guard mission in Washington, D.C. competing with National Guard troops that you need to help administer the vaccine?
Hey, Lucas, those National Guard troops are not mine. That would be a better question for General Hokanson or Fema here. I am not aware of any competition for those National Guard folks.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to the phone lines. We've got Jared Zuba from L Monitor.
Hi, no question at this time, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Back to the floor, Tom.
Hi, thank you for doing this. Yesterday, some of the governors sent a letter to President Biden asking for a sort of a national approach to the whole vaccination effort. Is this part of what you're hearing from the White House, and how does those requests from those governors to the president yesterday affect what you're announcing today and looking forward to doing?
Well, so the president has a national plan, his strategy for COVID-19 response and pandemic preparedness. And what I briefed to you today is what that strategy is. So it starts out with the president providing the resources to states and local governments, so 100% funding for any support to vaccinate. It then provides federal resources to states and local governments if they need federal capability, specific personnel, expertise, whether it be medical or other capability. It made the National Guard 100% reimbursable so that they could leverage the National Guard to the fullest extent possible. And then lastly, increase throughput by providing primarily federally supported sites, which is this year. So we're doing this now in California, 2 locations. We'll move it on to Texas and New York, and the White House will announce other locations that we're working on. The key and underlying principle to the president's plan is to ensure that we meet equity and that there's no inequity as far as who we vaccinate, and that we focus on the most socially vulnerable populations when we do that. So the president does have a strategy. We're following that strategy, and it includes increasing supply each week, which he's done, and providing a dedicated number that goes 3 weeks out, which has happened.
Okay, next up, Oren.
Is FEMA bringing its own supply of vaccines to these sites that require or will use type 1 and type 2 teams, or is it using the state's supply of vaccines? And if you're aiming for 400,000 a day or the capability to do that, it seems by the math you're going to need many more type 1 and type 2 teams. Are there outstanding requests for sites like these from states that have not been fulfilled?
Yeah, so let's start with the first question. There are no outstanding requests in the system right now. This is part of a pilot to build this federal capability, and we've reached out to states. As far as dedicated supply, this is a supply that's above and beyond what the state's allocation is. So this week, the dedicated supply was 11 million doses of vaccine split across the United States. Next week will be 13.5 million, so an increase next week, and no less than that or more than that in each of the preceding weeks after that, out to 3 weeks. So this is a dedicated supply above and beyond the state allocation, above and beyond what the pharmacies are receiving, and in a pilot phase right now. What we're working through is the criteria for that pilot. Large population areas, using the CDC Social Vulnerability Index to focus on populations at risk, to ensure equity in the vaccination of individuals.
Okay. Hey, this is Captain Coonsey. We're going to have time for one last question. Thanks.
Then we'll stay on the floor here. Christina?
Great. Thank you for doing this. Just to clarify, I think you said 500,000 vaccines a day, or did you say 400,000? And when will this capacity be up and running?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question. If you could ask it again, please.
Yes. Did you say 400,000 or 500,000 vaccines a day? And when will this capacity be up and running?
Okay, so each type 1 site does 6,000 vaccinations per day. So we have 2 sites here in California that are primarily federally supported state managed. So 2 sites. We'll increase to 3 sites in Texas. 2 of those will be type 2, which have a throughput of 3,000 per day, and 1 of them will be type 1, which is a 6,000 throughput. In New York, it will be 2 type 2s, which are 3,000 per day. So that's the throughput per day. What I said when I talked about 400,000 plus is if you took the 50, when someone asked me how did I get to 100 teams, I simply took 50 type 1s and 50 type 2s, which would be 300,000 per day using that 6,000 per day, and 150,000 per day, which would be 50 type 2s, and projected a need over months to give DOD a demand signal so that its supply ramped up, that we had enough throughput to vaccinate people. That doesn't mean that it all comes on at one point. This is a phased operation that mirrors supply, and if there's other available throughputs, such as all the state and local sites out there, the pharmacies, those will be taken into account. So I don't think we will go past the 100 sites. In fact, I anticipate the number to be less than that, but I want to make sure I had the total amount ready and sent DOD a big enough demand signal that if we did need it that much in a short period of time, they were ready for the mission.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for questions today. I want to thank you for joining us and for the work you do. Have a great day.